This is NBC Nightly News with John Chancellor and David Brinkley. Tonight, Thursday, June 30th, reported by John Chancellor from the NBC News Center in New York.
Good evening. President Carter stunned the Pentagon, angered many in Congress, and surprised just about everybody today when he ordered the cancellation of the B-1 bomber program, a $24 billion controversy. His decision means that American nuclear strength will be based on submarines, ballistic missiles, older B-52 bombers, and increasingly on the new weapon called the cruise missile. The president told a press conference today that the recent development of the cruise missile makes the B-1 unnecessary. He said if things go bad with the Russians, he will order the B-1 built, but not now. Here are two reports on the president's decision.
Before Mr. Carter spoke today, there was a widespread feeling in Washington and elsewhere that the president would approve at least some production of the B-1, that he would go back on a campaign promise and order deployment of the new supersonic bomber. Instead, Mr. Carter chose alternatives to the B-1 and rejected arguments to build a whole new weapons system. His decision can save $24 billion over the next 5 years.
This has been one of the most difficult decisions that I've made since I've been in office. During the last few months, I've done my best to assess all the factors involving production of the B-1 bomber. My decision is that we should not continue with deployment of the B-1, and I am directing that we discontinue plans for production of this weapon system. In the meantime, we should begin deployment of cruise missiles using air-launched platforms such as our B-52s, modernized as necessary. I think in toto, the B-51, a very expensive weapon system, basically conceived in the absence of the cruise missile factor, is not necessary.
The scuttling of the B-1 doesn't mean it's going to be any easier to get a strategic arms agreement. In fact, it may become more difficult. The Russians are very concerned about those cruise missiles. They're hard to detect, and if suddenly hundreds of them carrying nuclear warheads were to be launched against them, Russian defenses might be overwhelmed. So when they next sit down to negotiate, the Russians will try to get limits on the number of cruise missiles the United States can deploy. Mr. Carter said today he doesn't want to do that. So there could be more delay in getting a strategic arms agreement. Marilyn Berger, NBC News, the White House.
This is what the Russians are worried about, the cruise missile. It's only 14 feet long, but it has the potential of flying 1,500 miles, almost invulnerable to existing Soviet defenses, and hitting its target with a force 10 times that which destroyed Hiroshima. It flies at subsonic speeds, but so close to the ground that it's hard to pick up on radar. Its main feature, a highly accurate computerized guidance system. The cruise can be launched from B-52s or other aircraft. The Navy is also developing a cruise to be launched from submarines or surface ships. The missile is relatively cheap, about $1 million each. It's still in research and development, and it's not expected to be ready for deployment until the 1980s. Top Air Force officials learned of President Carter's decision only moments before he announced it, and they watched in stunned disbelief. No one here had expected the president would kill the program. But Defense Secretary Harold Brown had given the president three options: the B-1, the B-52 armed with cruise missiles, or a combination. Cruise missiles launched from both the B-52 and from some other kind of platform. He said the United States could defend itself with any of the three. Then at a meeting last Monday, President Carter said he was inclined not to build the B-1, and he asked Brown for his recommendation. Brown repeated his contention that all three options would work militarily, but he said if he had his way, he would go ahead full speed with the cruise missile because it's less costly, he said, and it's a better weapon. Charles Quinn, NBC News at the Pentagon.
The president had described the B-1 during last year's campaign as wasteful. His press secretary said later today that the president wanted the maximum deterrent, which could be purchased with the minimum amount of money, and that's the cruise missile. It's a decision which will shape American nuclear power for years to come, and in a minute, we'll have more news about it.
The Amway story has many chapters. This is one of them.
Here at Amway World Headquarters, it's hard to believe Amway started just 18 years ago.
But it did. The pictures prove it.
And today, Amway's manufacturing complex continues to grow, supplying more independent Amway distributors every year.
That's why, no matter where we live, we distributors say, we're independent, but never alone.
Want to know more? See your Amway distributor.
And get the whole story.
Come on, you guys. We haven't got all day.
There.
Who are you?
I'm Mother Tums. Tell me where it hurts.
Here. It's acid indigestion. Heartburn.
Take Tums for the tummy.
Are they strong?
For neutralizing acid, Tums are 1/3 stronger for the money than the other leading tablet.
Oh, thanks, Mother Tums. Okay, Steve, move it on.
Tums, 1/3 stronger.
There.
The president's decision to cancel the B-1 program provoked criticism today from conservatives and praise from liberals. In the Congress, some outraged conservatives were hoping that money for at least a few B-1s could be kept in the defense appropriation bill now under consideration. The Democratic leadership is mainly on the president's side. Catherine Mackin reports.
In Congress, support for the president was led by the two Democrats who have been the most critical of Mr. Carter, Liberal spokesman George McGovern and the Senate's leader, Robert Byrd.
I think that his decision is based on a very careful analysis of the facts and the circumstances. And I believe that the Congress will support that decision.
He looks better in my eyes as a consequence of the decision that he made today. But I think what this points up is the necessity of members of the Congress and other citizens speaking out for their convictions.
Opposition to the president was sharp, even bitter, especially from the congressman who represents the California district where the B-1s were to be built.
I really do believe they're breaking out the vodka and the caviar in Moscow. Particularly fighter squadrons all over Siberia and the Soviet Union are licking their chops at the thought of going against big, fat, wide-bodied 747s or DC-10s mated up with cruise missiles.
Generally, it's going to have a bad reaction across the country. The worst reaction will be an indication of another weak president who just doesn't have the courage to formulate tough foreign policy and formulate the toughness that's needed to follow it up.
I think it was a very unfortunate decision, one that was made quite contrary to the majority opinion in Congress, to the opinion of the professional military man, indeed, the President's own Secretary of the Air Force. I don't know who advised him on this judgment, but I think he was a poor one.
Today, shortly after the president's announcement, the House passed a money bill with funds in it for the B-1. So it's up to the Senate to make the first move to kill it. If Senate Leader Robert Byrd has it his way, it will go quietly in a Senate Appropriations Committee without even having a major debate on the subject. But should there be a debate, leaders of both the House and Senate say the Congress would vote with the president to end the B-1 bomber. Catherine Mackin, NBC News at the Capitol.
The cancellation of the $24 billion B-1 program is a blow to a lot of blue-chip American companies. And here are the names of some who won't get B-1 contracts: General Electric, Bendix, Goodrich, Goodyear, LTV, Sperry Rand, Cutler Hammer, Singer, and a lot more. The one which will be the most affected, though, is Rockwell International, the main contractor. Roy Neal was at Rockwell in California today.
This is the final assembly area for the B-1 bomber. It's been empty for some time, waiting for the president to make his decision. There is one test model in production. It'll be the last B-1 assembled here. Thousands of workers will be affected by the decision to cancel production. Rockwell International, the prime contractor, said that about 10,000 of its employees, most of them in the Los Angeles area, will be laid off. Subcontractors in other parts of the country will be equally hard hit. The president of the Rockwell B-1 division gave this overall estimate.
Of some 40,000 total people that are working on the B-1 program right at this moment, there will be something like 30,000, 32,000 of those who will be terminated.
There are 3 B-1s currently flying, and President Carter said the flight test program will continue. But his announcement, killing the plans for production, came as a shock to the people who build the B-1. They had expected at least limited production, not cancellation. The decision to cancel the B-1 bomber means major layoffs to the workers. It also means that Rockwell's B-1 facilities may be forced to close down. They were set up to build only one product, the B-1 bomber. And at the moment, there's nothing else they can make here. Roy Neal, NBC News, at the Rockwell B-1 facility in Los Angeles.
Also at his press conference today, the president said that he hoped to start work on full diplomatic relations with China, possibly before the end of the year. He said this could lead to a break in formal and military relations with the Chinese nationalists on Taiwan, but that commercial and cultural ties might be maintained. The president was harshly criticized today by the Republican leadership in the Congress, not only for his decision on the B-1, but also for his foreign policy. Howard Baker in the Senate and John Rhodes in the House accused Mr. Carter of rank amateurism for his policy on the Middle East and the B-1. In a joint statement, Rhodes and Baker said the administration's policy in the Middle East was another step toward escalating tensions in one of the world's most dangerous places.
A bread with fewer calories than yogurt?
2 slices of Fresh Horizons have fewer calories than a cup of plain yogurt or gelatin.
A bread with as much fiber as bran cereal?
2 slices of Fresh Horizons have as much crude fiber as 2 bowls of bran cereal or all this celery.
Fewer calories than yogurt.
As much crude fiber as bran cereal.
Fresh Horizons, wheat and white. We add fiber and take out calories.
Terrific coffee. But I can't drink this.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't. I want decaffeinated.
Yes, you can. It's brim decaffeinated.
No, I can't. This tastes too good to be decaffeinated.
Well, you can get good taste in decaffeinated coffee with brim. Just taste its rich ground flavor.
Brim is delicious. Can I have another cup?
No, you can't. You'll miss your train.
Brim tastes like fresh ground coffee. It tastes so good, you won't believe it's decaffeinated.
Morning, Tom. Morning. Pounding that pavement yesterday sure got me, George. This nagging backache ruined my sleep.
Here, start taking these this morning.
Dome's pills?
They sure help me.
When nagging backache due to overexertion or everyday stress and strain comes on, Doan's pain-relieving action often brings temporary relief and lets you get a good night's sleep.
How's the back, Tom?
Good.
Oh, great.
Try Doan's pills for relief of nagging backache.
Transportation Secretary Brock Adams ruled today that all new cars sold in this country must be equipped with airbags or other passive restraints beginning in 1984. Adams told the automobile manufacturers they must begin equipping some of their new cars with passive restraints in the 1982 model year. His decision will stand unless revoked by Congress. One congressman has already introduced a bill to kill it. Bob Kerr has more on the controversy.
The government estimates that each year 9,000 lives would be saved and 500,000 serious injuries prevented if cars were equipped with passive restraint systems. This VW Rabbit offers passive restraint. The driver doesn't have to buckle the safety belt. It wraps around the driver automatically. The airbag is another example of passive restraint because it inflates automatically in a serious accident. But critics say airbags cost too much, inflate accidentally, and protect only during head-on collisions. General Motors is the only U.S. automaker to say it will equip its cars with a passive restraint system if Congress says it should. Ford says it needs more time to study the matter. Chrysler and American Motors are against it. They argue passive restraint systems would raise the price of cars unnecessarily, and that existing seatbelts, if they were used, would provide enough safety. Bob Kerr, NBC News, Detroit.
In Washington, the House Ways and Means Committee today completed action on President Carter's energy proposals. The committee gave the president most of what he wanted, although it did reject his standby gasoline tax and rebates to buyers of small cars. House Speaker Tip O'Neill predicted the full House would approve the bill the first week in August. Senate action is expected a little later. In Austin, Texas today, State Supreme Court Justice Don Yarborough was indicted on charges of lying to a grand jury and forging the title of a car. The Houston District Attorney's Office says Yarbrough was implicated in an abortive murder plot. Yarbrough denies all the charges. George Lewis reports.
I, Don Yarbrough, do solemnly swear. When Justice Don Yarbrough took office at the beginning of this year, he was already under a cloud of suspicion. Former business partners and law clients were suing him, creditors were hounding him, and his fellow lawyers were talking about disbarring him. Now he is charged with criminal conduct. A former Yarbrough associate, Bill Rothkopf, told a grand jury how Yarbrough wanted to hire a killer to get rid of a couple of men who were going to testify against him. Officers feared for Rothkopf's safety. They guarded him closely and hid his face with a paper bag. Yarbrough called the stories of murder plots utterly ridiculous. I do not know how I have survived this ordeal up to this point in time, but I think I have every intentions of surviving it. And I think that it will come out very satisfactorily and successfully. But late yesterday afternoon, Houston District Attorney Carol Vance said he had tape recordings of Yarbrough plotting the killings. Because Yarbrough never actually hired the killer, he cannot be charged with soliciting murder. But Vance says the tapes prove Yarbrough should be ousted.
I think it is imperative that the public have the right to know about the conduct of one of the justices on our Supreme Court, and I would hope that the proper authorities would take action as soon as possible to have this person removed from the Supreme Court.
But the authorities may not be able to remove Yarbrough immediately. Under Texas law, a judge under indictment can continue to serve until proven guilty. George Lewis, NBC News, Houston.
Dow Jones and Company, which publishes the National Observer, announced today that the National Observer Weekly will go out of business after the edition that goes to press this Saturday. Dow Jones said the Observer has been losing money for years. There's been no word from or about Charlotte Gross since last night when the 15-year-old former Girl Scout called her father and said she was all right and would soon be released. She was abducted yesterday while on a camping trip near Sarasota, Florida. And John Mitchell got a new job today. The former Attorney General will work as a clerk at the federal prison camp in Alabama, where he's serving time for Watergate crimes.
Well, the higher coffee prices go, the more you need Mr. Coffee. Mr. Coffee, with this exclusive coffee saver, saves coffee, saves money. Two ways. First, percolators make you use up to 50% more coffee per potful than Mr. Coffee. Second, with Coffee Saver, you make only the exact number of cups you want. That's great. Remember, Mr. Coffee with Coffee Saver saves coffee, saves money.
It doesn't cramp my style.
It doesn't cramp my style.
What doesn't cramp my style? Phillips, milk of magnesia. When I have constipation, I rely on Phillips. It really works, and it doesn't interfere with my day.
Unlike most laxatives, Phillips formula puts your natural body water to work, drawing it to where it's needed to soften and lubricate. Relieves constipation in hours, usually without cramps. Phillips, regular, chocolate, or mint.
It really works, and it doesn't cramp your style.
On our special this evening, we'll have a look at one of the proposed solutions to the energy crisis that isn't working out too well. That proposed solution is new rapid transit facilities in big cities, people movers that are supposed to get people out of their cars and to work without wasting lots of energy. But as Douglas Kiker reports, people movers, including the system in the nation's capital, can be very expensive.
It's called Metro. It is a huge new urban transit system which has been under construction in Washington for 7.5 years now. Metro's first section started operating a year ago, and service has been excellent. It's proving to be a social and economic mixmaster, so fast and efficient that workers in one part of Washington can use Metro during lunch hour to go cross town to eat and shop. Metro's second section starts at National Airport, goes past the Pentagon, under the Potomac River, winds through Washington, and intersects with the first section. Metro's trains travel at speeds up to 75 miles an hour over cushioned rails, which produce a smooth ride. There is an engineer aboard each train, but he's only there as a backup. The entire system actually is controlled by computers. Metro's stations are quiet, spacious, and handsome. The cars are air-conditioned and carpeted, and the seats are comfortable. With the addition of this second section, the number of daily Metro passengers is expected to jump from 35,000 to 175,000. So even though it is still only about half completed, Washington's Metro must now be considered the nation's newest operating urban transit system, and a good one, too. There is only one problem. Metro is a financial disaster. Its original estimated cost was $2.5 billion. Today it is $5.5 billion, more than double. Metro was designed as a 100-mile regional transit system, but all of the line may not be built because of rising construction costs. The worth of such urban transit systems is now being questioned. Critics say they cost too much to build and operate, and they really don't solve the problem of urban traffic congestion. The nation's existing urban transit systems now operate at a loss of $1.5 billion a year. They must be subsidized with public money. The federal government also spends over $2 billion a year on new urban transit projects. Advanced planning for systems similar to Metro is underway in over a half dozen other major cities, and the Senate recently voted to keep the program funded for another 5 years. In his campaign, Jimmy Carter was an enthusiastic advocate of heavy mass transit, but now as president, he is taking another look, suggesting there may be less expensive alternatives. Transportation Secretary Brock Adams explains.
The key thing that's being done now is a closer examination both of engineering design and is there another alternative? In other words, can you go on the surface with a lighter rail car than tunneling and going with a heavy rail car? That's the thing that the president is expressing concern about and that we're carrying out as an operating group.
So Washington has a new subway system, Metro, but other cities may find the federal government less willing to help finance similar projects. Such systems are beneficial to a big city, no doubt about that, but the big question is how vital is the need for them? And can the federal government, with so many other mounting bills to pay, really afford to build them and then permanently subsidize their operation in cities all over the country? Douglas Kiker, NBC News, Washington.
Something else that on rails is becoming too expensive is the railway post office system. Over the years, postal clerks have sorted countless millions of letters on trains thundering across the country. Most of us never saw this except as depicted in Western movies, but now it's coming to an end. Richard Hunt reports.
Ever since 1864, the railway post office has been a proud tradition of the United States mail system. In the late 1940s, there were 4,000 mail cars and 30,000 men riding them to sort the mail. Only 4 mail cars are still in service. They're used in 2 trains on the one remaining route, Washington to New York and New York to Washington, 5 nights a week. More than 50,000 pieces of mail are loaded onto each car, and the 11-man crew sorts it during the 4.5-hour trip. Foreman Jim Evans has been riding the mail cars for 40 years, and he's proud that the job gets done on time every night. Evans and his crew believe their work makes it possible for a letter mailed in New York on Wednesday to be delivered in Washington on Thursday. Mail sorted in stationary post offices and moved by freight usually takes at least a day longer. But the railway post office costs $1 million a year more than it costs to move the mail by truck or freight car. So, early Friday morning, a mail car will roll into Washington with its last load, and the service will stop. Probably forever. Richard Hunt, NBC News, on the last of the railway mail cars.
Last week, John McEnroe was an 18-year-old amateur tennis player from New York City playing in the back lots of Wimbledon. Today, he was playing Jimmy Connors in the semifinals, and McEnroe was giving the top-seeded Connors more trouble than anyone dreamed he would. Connors won, of course, but McEnroe did take one set from him. That was largely because of Connors' carelessness. But still, McEnroe is the youngest player ever to reach the semifinals at Wimbledon.
My dentures were so dingy and yellow, I hardly opened my mouth. My kindergarten called me Mrs. Sourball because I hardly ever smiled. Then I started brushing with Denture Cream. Denture Cream's anti-yellowing formula gets rid of dingy yellow film. And Denture Cream helps keep the yellow from coming back. because it polishes better than ever. Yellow dentures took away my smile. Denture Cream's anti-yellowing formula gave me back my smile.
Good morning, Mrs. Healy.
I switched to Bayer. I used to use an aspirin substitute because I thought aspirin might upset my stomach. But then I read inflammation often accompanies pain. And aspirin substitutes do nothing to relieve inflammation. Also, a major hospital study showed 99 times out of 100, Bayer aspirin didn't upset the stomach. So, I switched to Bayer.
Bayer, the kind of relief you cannot get from an aspirin substitute.
And finally this evening, Jimmy Carter and monogamy. Monogamy means being married to and faithful to only one other person. You might not think that a subject of this nature would come up at a presidential press conference, but it did today in a question asked by Lester Kinsolving, an Episcopal priest who writes about the White House. And here is how the president handled it.
President, Panax Newspapers has a tape-recorded statement by Dr. Peter Bourne that even though your own relationship is monogamous, you never held anything against people in your organization who were involved promiscuously with other women. My question is Dr. Bourne right or wrong in this recorded statement?
He's certainly right in part of it. My relationship is monogamous.
Yes, sir, but what about the rest of it? Could I follow up with...
I'm sorry?
What about the second part of it? He has stated that you never held anything against people in your organization who were involved promiscuously with other women.
My preference is that those who associate with me, in fact, all people, would honor the same standards that I honor, but I've never held it against people who had a different standard from myself. I've done everything I could, properly and legitimately, to encourage my staff members' families to be stable, and I have also encouraged the same sort of thing in my cabinet. If there are some who've slipped from grace, then I can only say that I'll do the best I can to forgive them and pray for them.
And that's the program for this evening. Good night for NBC News.
Listen to the Sayres, winners in a Publishers Clearinghouse giveaway.
We knew we were going to have a baby, but we never expected to win this check for $100,000.
Now we can give our Brian the best of everything.
You may be lucky, too. A new Clearinghouse giveaway is in the mail now. Homes, cars, cash, over $500,000 in prizes just to call attention to our fine magazine values. Watch your mail for the new giveaway from Publishers Clearinghouse and enter now. You may be a winner, too.
That was some party. You stayed until 2. Now your head and your stomach can't blame no one but you. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz.
Here it comes, upset stomach and aching head. The plop, plop, fizz, fizz is fast, fast. For heartburn alone, try Alka-2, the one you chew.
Oh, what a relief it is.
Reggae music, the biggest sound in Jamaica. A look at single parents. A new method of improving oneself through rebirth in water at room temperature. Jack Perkins and Linda Ellerbee of NBC News on 9. Tonight at 8, 7 Central and Mountain Time.
Western Auto will be good to you.
Be good to your lawn with this big Western Auto Power Mower value. The deluxe 20-inch mower for less than $100. 5-position height adjusters. Easy rolling ball bearing wheels. Only $99.99. A great value for the money. Just one of the complete selection of power mowers at your nearby Western Auto store.
Western Auto will be good to you.
Knick-knack, paddywhack, give your dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. This old man... Is that an accident, Mrs. Miller? I'm afraid so, hon.
Since 1967, Volvo engineers have investigated and analyzed over 30,000 traffic accidents. A lot of what they've